And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that. No, I mean, like,
you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
Charlie was right. This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com. TatumStore.com. Team Trump 2024. Team Trump 2024. Get 20% off the entire store. Get you some of this merch today. We have a couple new items. We're still trying to work out our Trump steamroll design because it's absolutely epic. So we may put it back on the website. You click notify me and made available to get yours, almost like a pre-order. We can at least let you know when we get it in stock. But until then, we got all of these other cool designs. Make sure you get them from Tatum Store today. Like and subscribe to the channel. Y'all already know what to do. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm making this video because someone sent this to me. It was actually Sergio. My homeboy Sergio does photography. One of the best photographers in America, period. He sent this to me, and I was watching it, and I thought it was just a clip of Charlie Kirk, and then it was another black guy, very articulate, smart black guy that looked well put together, made a response. Now, I'm listening to this man's response to Charlie, and two things popped up in my mind. First is the man did not adequately expose the context of what Charlie said. Second, he's a complete disingenuous man that want to play victim his whole life, even though the man looked like he's incredibly successful. He looks fit. He's articulate. He's claimed he's successful, but his mind is still on a plantation. Let me tell you why, and I'm going to debunk what he said about Charlie because Charlie was right about this. Roll the clip.
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
What's up, everyone? Coach
No context.
He speaks with the Midas Touch Network. So if you don't get anything else out of this video, what I want you to get out of it is that diversity does not mean less qualified. And this goes more so for the children of color out there, gay kids, trans kids, little girls out there. If you're ever at your place of employment or your school and anyone talks about how that school or that employer believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, don't ever look at yourself and wonder if you were accepted to that school or employed by that job for any other reason than your exceptionalism.
Man, I'm finna tear this dude apart. This is absolutely asinine to me. And you're gonna see in this video how he contradicts himself over and over and over and put himself in a pretzel just to try to make victimhood a thing. Charlie Kirk, if you listen to the context of what he's saying, United Airlines made it a point to say that we are going to make sure that our pilots are 50% minority and women, or people of color and women. You know how crazy that sounds? That's like the NFL, that's like your favorite NFL team saying, it's too many black people on this team. It's not enough diversity. We're going to make sure 50% of the players on the Arizona Cardinals are white players. People, their brains will pop. And him saying to a young person, well, don't feel like that you got the job for any other reason but because you're excellent. No. They believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. That means that they're seeking to hire you because of the color of your skin, not necessarily your merit. Because if a white guy was better than you, they're going to pick you because they need diversity. They're not going to pick you because you're better. Let's let it finish because Homeboy said some other crazy stuff. Roll the clip.
Because diversity does not mean less qualified.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
First of all, we already.
The reality the left has created, which is 100% true. Charlie is saying, I wouldn't normally think like this, but because they put it out in the forefront, it's now creating a situation within me that now I'm thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about how they hire. I'm thinking that United Airlines is hiring the most qualified people. And therefore, I believe every pilot that go in there must be the most qualified. If I saw a black, if I saw a white, if I saw a woman, if I saw a trans, they're qualified. But when they come out on TV and say qualification isn't the number one priority, it's diversity. So then you have to ask the question, me and the team was talking about this. Well, what were they doing before they're starting to implement diversity? Were they hiring the best? If they were hiring the best, then that means diversity wasn't hiring the best. It's not hiring the best. Because they would have diversity if they were hiring the best. So let me play this clip for you, and it's still more that I want to say to slap this guy over the head.
You knew this. There's not a black person in this country that didn't already know that there were white people in this country who have the same opinions of the 4 white guys on that panel. I went to grade school in New Orleans, Louisiana in the 80s. And even back then, our black teachers, coaches, vice principals, and principals always told us that we had to work harder because there are people out there who will always think that you got something because you were black.
Nobody thinks that. It's called affirmative action. So when there's a concept of affirmative action, then people begin to believe that you are the affirmative action hire. It's the same thing that happened with Joe Biden and the Supreme Court Justice, I forget her name now, Ketanji Brown Jackson. The man should have just said, I'm hiring the best woman, or not even woman, I'm hiring the best candidate that I could find. We're going to do a rigorous search. We're going to look at background search. Referrals are going to be intense. This is going to be the most qualified Supreme Court justice we have ever appointed in American history. And in your mind, you can just pick a black woman. But you don't do that. You say, I'm going to pick a black woman. But what if the black man is more qualified than the black woman? And you got to pick it because you said you're going to pick a woman. That's why people are telling you they're creating victimhood on two ends. The reason people are stupid enough to tell young black men you got to work harder than white people, one reason is because they believe that you're a victim. They don't believe that you're equal. They don't believe that you are smart enough. They don't believe it. So they project it on you, and then you think you're not smart enough because you got to work extra hard. And you begin to question scenarios that you should never question because people ain't thinking like that. And I'll get to the other one in a second. Let me let him finish.
So we've always known that we've had to outwork everyone just to get half the respect.
Hold on. Do you have to outwork other black people, though? No. Do you have to outwork other black people? These people create these scenarios as if the workforce is nothing but white folks, and you got to compete against white people. But what if it's 5 black dudes working for the job? Y'all all get an even shot, right? No, you don't have to work twice as hard as the other black people applying, do you? Oh, okay. Come on, bro. You crazy. If you live in Atlanta, where it's nothing but black people, in businesses where there's nothing but black people working there, nothing but black people in the hiring process, do you still have to work twice as hard as white people? Come on, bro. It's crazy.
I was in college in the 90s. During that time, I was on the track and field team. And myself and a lot of my black teammates would talk about this way back then. We would always talk about how we had to carry ourselves in public, in school, and in interviews just to get an inkling of the respect that we would get if we were white. After college, 20 years ago, when I got the job that I'm in right now as a professor and a coach, I went to one of my favorite teachers, my high school algebra teacher, who was white, and asked him for a letter of recommendation.
Let's break this down. You went to your teacher who was white, obviously poured into you. You loved him, or you respected him enough, he respected you enough for you to get a reference from this person. So I would argue that teacher is an advocate of you, a fan of who you are.
While handing me that letter 20 years ago, he says to me, you know, Demetrius, I'm really proud of you. And even if you're getting this job because they needed to hire a few more black people, doesn't mean that you can't do great things. I was absolutely floored. Imagine how you feel when you were a good student, an exceptional athlete, had already been a successful coach and educator, and then be told by one of your favorite teachers that you're not getting the job because of your extraordinary credentials, but because you're black.
Now, listen to what the man's saying. This is why, if I was white, I wouldn't be able to stand black people. That man wrote you a letter of recommendation, poured into you, loved you. If we put that man on an interview right now, he would speak probably nothing but highly things about you and never thought about your color of your skin. Now, what he was trying to do is protect you, which it didn't work because you still want to be a victim, even though you're highly successful. What he wanted to protect you from is not allowing the virtue signal of universities to stop to make you feel a certain way. He's trying to protect your feelings. So he said, even though they may have picked you because of this, that does not mean that you are not excellent, and it does not mean you can't do great things. Don't let the affirmative action hire companies and all of these companies that are going after black people and picking them because of their race, not really looking at their credentials as much. Don't let that affect you, young man. A white man told him that because he cared about him, or he wouldn't have wrote him a reference. But this man thinks the white man is racist. He finna say it. He think the white man has an implicit racial bias towards him. The man then gave you a reference, poured into you, speak life to you, and you counting him in a category with racist. You can't please some of these people.
Imagine the gut punch that I felt. And that was 20 years ago. So when the guys on this panel say that this is something new or the reality that the left has created, no, we've always been told this because we've always known that there are racist white people who don't think black people are ever going to be good enough.
How you going to do him like that? How you going to do your dude like that? If he didn't think you were good enough, why would he give you a reference? If the man didn't care about you, he would have never said something that he felt would help you and give you peace in this chaotic situation of liberal virtue signaling. But you turn around 20 years later and see him as a racist instead of seeing him as a man that loved you. And you, instead of this man, you literally articulated what Charlie Kirk and them were saying. Because instead of them promoting, we're going to hire blacks, they shouldn't do that because it diminishes your credentials by virtue of them even saying that. When you have a company that says we're for delusion, declusion, and illusion, you with a DEI company, you have to then ask the question, well, what were y'all doing before y'all diversity and inclusion? Were y'all racist? So they're not saying that they were racist before. Now all of a sudden they're doing what? Now all of a sudden when they get resumes in, they're only going to the black people to find candidates. This is what they're doing. When they get resumes in, they have 2 qualified people. They say, we need more black people. So I'm going to pick the black over the white. This wasn't acceptable when white people did it to black people, and it's not acceptable to do it against white people. I don't know why we can't get that at this point. The true message of hope for black people is that we need to focus on preparing them from a young age to be qualified, prepared, and have a resume that's worthy of picking from. Y'all want to do it on a back end. Kid go to a crummy school, not educated, didn't know how to do it, put his resume together, never thought about doing this career field, never prepared himself, don't have any references. He get to a job interview and you want them to say, well, because he's black, let me just accept him in. No, when he's younger, prepare him. Prepare him to have a solid resume. Do some community service, work in the community, have him be shadowing somebody or an apprenticeship. Have the person build from when they're young so that they're most qualified when they get to a certain age. I don't understand why we teach our young people to be victims and for us to think we're below the acceptable line. We are exceptional and we need to start acting like it. The situation with the pilots. Go and look up right now. Maybe we should do the research. How many what is the demographic breakup of pilots in the world or in America? I would bet you $1 million the actual pilot licenses are issued to 90% white. So the pilot licenses, according to demographics, are 80% white. How many are men? 70% men. Now let's listen to this. 80% white, 70% men. So when United Airlines say, we're going to make 50% of our pilots women and people of color, they are disproportionately representing the true application process or license issuing that is established in the country. So they have to then figure out a way to overlook qualified white people to create diversity. Because if they really wanted to be fair and inclusive, you should be able to suggest that everybody who has a license is prepared. So your pilots should represent the totality of qualified people who have licenses. So it should be 70% white people who are pilots, and 80% of white people who are pilots, and 70% of men who are pilots. And therefore, you're fairly representing amongst the issued license a fair representation of your pilots. They're not doing that. If you have an industry where you say, I'm on a construction site and I need 50% of the construction workers to be women, it's like 2% of women trying to do construction in the first place. Therefore, it is absolutely impossible for you to be going after the best candidates and you fall where there's 50-50 men and women, although there's not 50-50 applications. Come on, man. I mean, brother, you smart. And what happens is smart brothers like this convince other young black people because it sound good, but it don't make sense. They don't do it. We never see a course correction in anything minority owned. We don't see course correction. If you go to a HBCU, historical black college university, they're not saying that it needs to be more diverse. They're not trying to add diversity. White people don't count in diversity. Hispanic people don't count in diversity. They're okay with a school being 90% black. They're okay with that. They're okay with a black-owned business hiring 90% black people. There is no question whatsoever. They're okay. They're okay with a meritocracy when it comes to black people, because black people in a position of meritocracy, they dominate sports. So all your NBA players are black because their merits dictate their success. But they're not going to the NBA and saying, look, it's not representation because 80% of the fans are white, so that means 80% of the players should be white. They're not saying that, because the difference is they go for the most qualified basketball players. They just so happen to be white. Y'all cool with that. They go for the most qualified pilots. Maybe, just maybe, they so happen to be white. The key is, how about instead of us pushing and thrusting our young people into doing all this other stuff, have them go and apply to be a pilot. Have a trade at the School of Aviation. Get them prepared and get them involved and enthusiastic about being a pilot. And then you'll see more qualified black pilots, and therefore they had a pick of the litter. But this stuff that homeboy is saying, and it's another 3 minutes, and I don't even know if I want to listen to all of it, because he was completely wrong about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is simply making a real observation that people shouldn't have to be worried about, are you hiring because of color or merit? And the funny thing is, and I'll say this and I'm going to shut the front door, and I'll make a part 2 to this if the rest of the video happen to be good enough. If you want to do bias hiring, you just don't have to say nothing about it. You're creating an issue when you talk about it. If you want to hire more black people, just shut up and hire black people. The same thing would happen here at my headquarters. I hire people based on, are you qualified? Are you a good culture fit? And I get people. Majority of the people that work here, I think, are black. None of it is because I look at the resume and I'm like, I'm only picking black people, or I need more diversity. I don't even look at that. One of the guys that work here that just got promoted to one of our warehouse team leads, he just drove up he was door dashing. He just drove up here because he saw we were doing screen printing. He ended up getting a job on the spot. If he was white, we would have gave the white guy a job. It just so happened to be him. Then on Indeed, we had a young lady on Indeed. We need positions like this. She came in, good resume, great interview. She got hired. One of our video editors, a mutual friend of mine, knew him. I had met him a couple times. I said, man, this guy would be a great culture fit. He has a great resume. I like the guy. He needed a job in this way. I say he needed a job. He would like to work in this industry. Boom, he in there. My other video editor is black. He just so happened to have an amazing portfolio of videos on LinkedIn. He's in. It's like, I met Sky. She's my assistant. I met Sky. I didn't even know what color she was. She was on the website. She was doing mods for my YouTube channel. And she was such an amazing young lady. I said, when I hire people, I got to get a person like Sky. Come to find out Sky's black. This stuff doesn't matter. On my job as a business owner, I'm not going to force diversity. I'm going to pick the best quality people. And they may be, most people that come my way or maybe exposed in an interview may be black. Who cares? But anyway, I can say that for 100 years. Like and subscribe to the channel. I might do a part 2 if the rest of this video is got some juice to it. Comment in the comment section. Is this dude wrong or not?